Hello everyone, this is Biniam Tasfai. Welcome to Nutrition Nerd Academy. Today we will continue section 3 part 1. Our today's lecture title is Overview of Gastrointestinal Tracts and the Process Within it. In today's lecture we will discuss oral cavities and esophagus as a part 1. In our subsequent videos we will discuss about the rest of the gastrointestinal tracts. Don't forget to subscribe these videos and this channel, and also don't forget to like, comment, and also share this video. This is how the YouTube algorithm works in order to expand these videos beside us. Our today's learning objectives include to discuss the list of digestive tract components including accessory organs, and also to discuss the anatomy and the functions of the oral cavity, and also to discuss the anatomy and the functions of esophagus. Finally, I will introducing you the next videos, and as always I will recommend you music to listen after this lecture for refreshment purpose. As an introduction, every day we eat foods, we digest foods through our digestive tracts. However, the overall goal of this digestion and absorption system is to avail the food molecules in the form of the simplest form of the food molecules to our cells for a proper functions of our bodies. And all of this process requires gastrointestinal tracts from the beginning in order to digest and absorb the nutrients. The gastrointestinal tracts can also be called as a digestive tracts or alimentary canal, and it is a long tube that extends from the mouth to the anus and is responsible for the digestion and absorptions of food, as well as the eliminations of waste products. The main structures of the digestive tracts includes the oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestines, and large intestine. Small and large intestines can be called lower digestive tracts, and oral cavity, esophagus, and stomach can be considered as an upper digestive tracts. There are also accessory organs that includes pancreas, liver, and gallbladders. Most scientific papers and also textbook consider pancreas, liver, and gallbladder as an accessory organs, which I don't agree with, because these organs involve in the most important parts of digestion and absorption, so consider them as an accessory is a little bit unconvincing. Anyways, we need also transporters to transport nutrients throughout the bodies. And we will also discuss the circulation systems and the lymphatic systems. We tried to touch this part a little bit in our previous videos to categorize nutrients based on which circulation system they followed at the beginning. Finally, we will discuss about the cell. Cell is the final endpoints of nutrients for its metabolism. So we will discuss the structure and functions of the cell. These are the main structures of the digestive tracts and the digestive and absorptive and also utilization systems. So we will discuss each one by one, but today as a part 1 we will discuss only oral cavities and esophagus. Okay. Let's start discussing the oral cavities, which is the upper digestive tract. The oral cavities can also be known as the mouth and is the anatomical cavity located at the upper end of the alimentary canal and bounded by the lips, cheeks, palates, and tongue. And these oral cavities serve as the entry point to the digestive tracts and plays a critical role in the initial stages of digestion. On entering the mouth, food is chewed by the actions of teeth and jaw muscle and is made ready for swallowing by mixing with secretions or saliva released from the salivary gland. The digestive process in the oral cavities include both mechanical breakdown and enzymatic digestion. The mechanical breakdown is when the food is chewed by the teeth and mixed with saliva, which makes it facilitating easier swallowings and increase the surface area for enzymatic action. Enzymatic digestions that happen in the oral cavities is done by the saliva. The saliva contains enzymes such as salivary alpha amylase and also the lingual lipase. The alpha amylase is actually used to initiate the digestion process of carbohydrates, and the lingual lipase is used to digest fat molecules inside our mouths. However, this lingual lipase is usually found inside the smaller children in order to digest milk lipids. And when we grow up, this lingual lipase activities will actually disappear or diminished. So it's just only work during the childhood or infant phases. And the main part of our oral cavities include our teeth, tongue, jaw muscles, palate, uvula, and salivary glands are the main part of the oral cavities, and they have their own specific job inside the oral. Let's discuss teeth. Teeth are hard mineralized structures which is located within the oral cavity of vertebrate animals, including human, and they are anchored in the jawbone and are composed primarily of dentine covered by enamel on the crown, the exposed part of the tooth, that means, and cementum on the root, which is the part of the tooth embedded in the jawbone. And one of the primary functions of teeth is to facilitate the mechanical breakdowns of food during chewing or mastication. Teeth can tear, cut, and grind food into smaller, more manageable pieces, which increases the surface area of the food for more efficient digestions and nutrient absorptions in the gastrointestinal tract. So the main purpose of our teeth is in order to reduce the size of the food products for subsequent enzymatic and hormonal actions. The next part of the oral cavity is tongue. Tongue is a muscular organ located in the oral cavities, and it is attached to the floor of the mouth and is primarily composed of skeletal muscle fibers covered by a mucous membrane. And this tongue plays several important roles in the oral cavities. The first one is taste sensation. Taste sensation, the tongue contains thousands of tiny structures called taste bud, and this which houses specialized sensory cells responsible for detecting taste sensation, such as sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami or savory tastes. And these tastes have special locations. For example, the specialized sensory cell which detects sweetness is found at the tip of the tongue, and the specialized sensory cells which detects saltiness is located at the sides of the next to the tip of the tongues, and the middle part of our tongue is detecting the umami or savory taste, and the side of the middle part of the tongue in both the left and the right side which detects the soreness of the taste, and the final or the back part of the tongue is detecting the bitterness taste. And this tongue is usually connected with the nervous system into our brains, and it usually ignites signals to our brain in order to function properly for the digestive processes. Once this signal is received by the brain orders many things to initiate the digestive process, including the secretions of body fluids that are helping the digestive processes. The second important role of the tongue is manipulations of the food during chewing processes, and the tongue is instrumental in the manipulation and the movement of the food within the oral cavities during chewing. It helps mix food with saliva and to form a bolus or a mass of chewed food. Tongue is also have a role in swallowing processes. The tongue plays a critical role in swallowing processes. During the oral phase of swallowing, the tongue helps push the bolus of the chewed food towards the back of the mouth and initiate the swallowing reflexes by pressing against the soft palate and triggering the opening of the pharynx. So our tongue will help us to push the partially digested foods in our mouths to be swallowed through our esophagus. The next part of our oral cavity is jaw muscles. Jaw muscle, also known as masticatory muscles, are a group of muscles involved in the movement of a jawbone or mandible during chewing or mastication. And the main functions of jaw muscle is to move the jawbone in various directions to facilitate the chewing processes. And they are doing by contracting and relaxing these muscles, it enables the up and down, side to side, and forward backward movement of the mandible. And these movements allow the teeth to come together to grind, tear, and crush food into smaller, more manageable pieces for swallowing and for subsequent digestion and absorption processes. The next part of the oral cavity is the palate. The palate is the anatomical structure that forms the roof of the mouth in vertebrate animals, including humans. It separates the oral cavities from the nasal cavities, and it composes of two main important parts. These are the hard palates and the soft palates. The hard palates provide a firm structure against which the tongue and the teeth can exert forces during chewing. This aids in the mechanical breakdowns of food into smaller, more digestible particles, facilitating the subsequent digestions and absorptions of nutrients in the gastrointestinal tracts. And the soft palates help prevent foods and liquids from entering the nasal passages during swallowing by closing of the nasopharynx. This ensures that food is directed towards the esophagus and stomach, allowing for efficient digestions and nutrient absorptions. As you can see in this picture, the hard palate is located starting from the first teeth up to the molar teeth, and the soft palate is located starting from the molar teeth up to the uvula sections. So their specific function is different. The next part is uvula. The uvula is the small fleshy structure located at the back of the throat, hanging down from the soft palate. And it is composed of connective tissues, muscle fiber, and mucosal membranes. The uvula serves several potential roles in oral cavities. This includes it assists swallowing processes, it also produces saliva, and it has also some immunological functions. The next part of the oral cavities, which is very, very important for the digestion part, is the salivary glands. These salivary glands are specialized exocrine glands located in and around the oral cavities. and these salivary glands produce saliva for us. They consist of three main parts, as you can see in the picture. There is a parotid glands, submandibular glands, and sublingual glands. And all these three glands together called a salivary glands. And these salivary glands also include numerous smaller glands scattered throughout the oral mucosa. And this gland produces saliva. As you can see in the picture, the child is wondering from where this the saliva is coming from, and he's playing with it. And this saliva is actually largely made of water, and the water composition of our saliva is 99.5%. And the water in the saliva is actually help us to dissolve the food. Saliva also contains proteins. These include enzymes, mucus, and antiviral or antibacterial proteins. The enzymes include the alpha amylase and the lingual lipase, as I discussed earlier. And the mucus is help us in order to lubricate and moisten the food materials. The saliva also contains electrolytes that include sodium, potassium, and chloride. They also contain solutes such as urea, phosphates, and bicarbonates. These are actually used to neutralize the acidity of the oral cavities. Saliva has different roles. The first one is moistening and lubrication. This makes the food easier to swallow. The second one is digestion initiation. By the initial steps of digestion is initiated in our oral cavities. Specifically, the saliva actually help the mechanical digestions. As well, they also engaged in enzymatic digestions, because saliva contains enzymes such as alpha amylase and lingual lipase. The third one is taste sensation. Saliva dissolves the food particles, which helps to release the taste molecules, so that we can easily taste the food product. So saliva can have three main important roles, which includes moistening and lubrication, initiations of enzymatic digestions, and also engaged in mechanical digestions by lubrication, something like that, and also taste sensation. Having said that, discussing the overall components of the oral cavities and their specific role, we can summarize the role of the oral cavities as follows. Oral cavity serves as the entry point for food into the digestive systems and is involved in various functions. So let's divide these functions into four. The first one is speech. Actually, speech will not be discussed in our today's lecture. However, maybe speech will be engaged in our discussion with food, or purchasing of foods, or communicating about food can be used as the main role of oral cavities. The second one is taste perception. Taste perception is the most important part of decision making, whether we going to intake the foods or not. The third one is mastications and chewing, which include both mechanical and chemical or enzymatic digestions. And the fourth one is initiations of digestive reflex. These are the main core role of oral cavities, which is actually orchestrated by different parts of the oral cavities, including the teeth, the tongue, the palate, and also the salivary glands. So let's discuss the taste perception. Taste perceptions refers to the psychological or physiological process by which Taste sensations are detected and interpreted by sensory receptors in the oral cavities, particularly on the tongue and other mucosal surfaces. Taste perceptions allow individuals to discern the various flavor characteristics of foods and beverages, including sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami or savory tastes. Taste sensations are conveyed to the brain to create the overall flavor experiences of food or beverages. Taste perceptions play a crucial role in determining food preference, intake, and overall dietary choices, influencing eating behaviors and nutritional status. This is the main point of the role of the oral cavities. So taste perceptions will make us to decide which dietary choices to follow. As you can see, the first lady is enjoying her foods and she is very happy with it. And the second boy with in the yellow background he's consuming some citruses, and his face tells us that he doesn't like it, or he is highly affected by the bitter taste of the citrus. As you can see, the first baby at the bottom, he's looking at the caregiver like, what is this food? And the next baby is like enjoying, or he loves the food. So taste perception is really a crucial plays a crucial role in determining our food preferences, and will help us, or will force us to determine our consumption pattern, which have an implications on the nutrition aspects. So one of the role of the oral cavity is the taste perceptions, which is very important. If you guys are interested, sensory analysis or sensory study is one of the basic sciences which have a big role in food science and nutrition, because it determines the decision making of a person whether to eat or not to eat that food. The second role of oral cavity is mastications or chewing. Mastications, commonly known as chewing, which is a process by which the food is mechanically broken down into smaller particles within the oral cavity. And during mastication, the teeth come together to compress and grind food, reducing it into a soft, semi-liquid mass called a bolus. So the main purpose of mastication in our food, in our mouth, in our oral cavity, is to convert the solid food material into a semi-liquid mass called a bolus, or to reduce the size of to reduce the size and the strength of the food into a semi-liquid masses. So the purpose of mastication includes breaking down foods. Breaking down food increases the surface area of the food, making it easier for digestive enzyme to act up on it and facilitating the chemical digestion processes by the enzymes, which is produced by the pancreas as well as the salivary glands as well. The next purpose of mastication is mixing it with the saliva. Chewing mixes food with saliva, which contains enzymes such as amylase that begins the breakdowns of carbohydrate. Saliva also moistens foods and make it easier to swallow. The third role of mastication is stimulating taste receptors. Chewing releases flavor and aromas from the food, which stimulates taste receptors on the tongue and contribute to the overall sensory experience of eating. And the fourth one is preparing for swallowing. Proper mastication ensures that food is adequately broken down into sizes and consistencies suitable for swallowing, which prevent choking and also facilitate a smooth passages through the digestive tracts. The next role of the oral cavity is initiations of digestive reflex, which is very important. Sensory receptors in the oral cavities detect the presence of food, triggering reflex that stimulate the secretions of digestive enzymes and hormones throughout the digestive tract. As you can see in the pathways, when the food enters the mouth and comes into contact with the sensory receptors, it stimulates nerve endings that send signals to our brain. And these signals are processed in various parts of our brain. And these neural pathways integrate the sensory inputs and generate motor responses that regulate digestive functions. And these sensory stimulations trigger reflex activations of the salivary glands, leading to the productions of saliva. As I said earlier, saliva will initiate the digestive process inside our mouths by the alpha amylase on carbohydrates and bilingual lipase on the lipid molecules in smaller children. And these sensory signals also stimulate the release of digestive hormones from the endocrine cells located throughout the GI tract. These hormones such as gastrins, cholecystokinin or CCK, and secretin regulate various aspects of digestive functions, including gastric acid secretion, pancreas enzyme release, and gallbladder contractions to release bile. This process will help us to facilitate the digestion and absorption processes. So our oral cavities, through the sensory receptors, when the food is in contact with our tongue and taste receptors, automatically send signals to our brain so that the brain will order our organs to release the digestive fluids, including the enzymes and hormones, in order to prepare themselves for the upcoming food to them, so that this will facilitate our digestive and absorption processes. This is one of the important role of oral cavities. The next GI tract that I like to discuss today is esophagus. The esophagus is a muscular tube that connects the throat or the pharynx with the stomach. Its primary function is actually to transport the foods and liquid from the mouth to the stomach through a series of coordinated muscle contractions known as peristalsis. The esophagus is lined with a mucous membrane that helps facilitate a smooth passage of foods and protect the underlying tissues from damage caused by swallowed substances. The esophagus is actually can be estimated on average as 25 centimeters long and close to 2 centimeters in diameter. It has a lot of components in it, especially at the tip, the one which connects the pharynx into the esophagus. There is a sphincter called upper esophageal sphincters, and also there is a sphincter which is like a kind of door between the esophagus and the stomach. There is also some parts which include cervical esophagus, upper thoracic esophagus, and middle thoracic esophagus kind of things. Anyways, the overall purpose of this esophageal system is to transport the food from the mouth to the stomach through the movement called peristalsis. The passage of the bolus of food from the oral cavities into the esophagus constitutes swallowing. And this swallowing, which can be divided into several stages, such as voluntary, pharyngeal, and esophageal. which is a kind of a reflex responses initiated by a voluntary actions and regulated by the swallowing center in the medulla of the brain. And this swallowing process inside our esophagus is conducted by the peristalsis movement, which is progressive wave-like motions that move the bolus through the esophagus into the stomach, which actually will take like kind of 10 seconds for one bolus to reach into our stomach. However, this movement doesn't include any gravitational forces. It's only going down because of the peristaltic movement. Okay, having said that, let me go to the quiz part. I just finished my presentations. So as a quiz for you guys, I prepare some questions. The first one is, define gastrointestinal tract. What are the main structures of the gastrointestinal tract? What are the necessary organs? What are the accessory organs for the GI tract? Define oral cavities. What are the main digestive processes in the oral cavities? What are the main parts of the oral cavities? Define each and describe their function. What are the role of oral cavity? Describe each of the role of the oral cavities. Define esophagus and its anatomy and describe its function. What is peristalsis? And try to discuss these questions for yourself and try to make an answer for it, and conclude what you have learned or what we have discussed so far. Our next video will be discussing the anatomy and the functions of the stomach. Then in our next videos we'll discuss more in detail about stomach only. This is the main part. So before we delve into each nutrient, understanding the anatomy and the functions of each organ is very important to understand the nutrient metabolism or the specific nutrient metabolism. Finally, as always, I want to recommend you to listen music entitled "Said I Love You But I Lied" by Michael Bolton. This music was released in 1993 and it's one of the famous love song at this period. I will put the link in the comment sections so that you can go and listen. Thank you so much. I finished my presentations or my lecture. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. Bye bye. See you on next video. See you soon. Bye bye.